Episode 2 of Mary and George begins with Sandy, a courtesan hitting on Mary, who is at a brothel to meet with David. They plan on sending George to stand by a secret road to catch the king's eye. However, it is full of young men who plan to do the same, and George is pushed into the mud. An upset George arrives home to see that John has killed their pet dog. To cover for him, as he has a marriage proposal coming soon, George shoots the dead dog. However, their chief attendant doesn't buy it. Edward Coke arrives with his wife, Elizabeth Hatton, and his daughter, Frances, and the Villiers do their best to hype up John. However, Elizabeth, who doesn't cow before anyone thanks to her own inheritance, immediately sees through them. She calls out everyone at the table, albeit quite rudely, and refuses a match between Frances and John. Edward is apologetic while Mary fumes. John believes it is his fault and also apologizes to their chief attendant for killing their dog. With John's status in limbo, Mary goes back to focusing on George. She pushes David to set a meeting with Queen Anne, as she hates Robert as much as they do, and the two women come up with a plan. At the next event, George is assigned to dance at the center stage, and he instantly has King James' attention, much to Robert's chagrin. After, Annie pretends that their son is sick and takes James away from Robert. Once alone, she tells him to knight George and add him to his retinue, as he comes from a noble family. Once Robert finds out, he is furious, but James keeps George by his side. Meanwhile, David hopes to remove Mary from the game and control George on his own. He threatens her lawyer and gets a signed letter that she is not a noble. Mary realizes that she is being followed, and she ends up at Sandy's, where they hook up. George joins the royal hunt and bonds with James. A scheming Robert pushes George off his horse, who takes it up a notch by cutting his head and pretending Robert did it to him. James instantly pities him and goes back for him. He allows George to deal the killing blow to the stag they catch and asks the doctor to look after George. That night, James goes to George's tent and hooks up with him. Meanwhile, Mary realizes David's plan and poisons his food with the help of Sandy. After he and his servant faint, they leave. Unfortunately, the servant doesn't die. Instead, he steals the signed letter about Mary's family, cuts David's ring finger, and delivers it to Francis Bacon at the end of Mary and George Episode 2. Mary and George Episode 2 keeps the momentum going with the Villiers scheming and plotting their way to the throne. But it also shows that George is not just a bystander who lets his mother manipulate him. He is equally clever, as he manipulates the king right into his tent. We do wonder what way the show will go now that George has earned James' trust. This installment also answers what Mary is up to in the background and proves why it is not called just George. With her secret now in the wrong hands, things can go wrong at any moment. We do wonder what is up with the mysterious Sandy and how she will play into the whole story.